All right. I'm back from a shift at work. What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for March 20th, 2023. On the eve of a vacation for myself, the extremely rocky start to 3.18 continues with an update hopefully looming. Missions are about to get very interesting, and they cleared up a lot of the confusion around the engineering update from last week. All that and more on today's Week in Review. And as always, if this is your first Week in Review, this is where I take all of the official Star Citizen news each week and put it into one video. I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike, every day but Monday, so I can get this video out to you guys, except this week. I'm going to be going on vacation, and I will be back for next week's Week in Review and then the subsequent Tuesday's stream. So keep an eye out on the YouTube channels. There's going to be some content here for you during the week, and mainly the React channel. So there'll be mostly just some Reacts that are posted. So get subscribed to SaltEMike Reacts if you guys haven't yet. But with that said, we got quite a bit to get through. So let's start out with talking a little bit more about 3.18. The 3.18 update has been rough. It's basically been impossible for some people to play, and the ones that have been able to play, it's been really difficult. You're fighting against a number of issues, but they are, quote, optimistic about the build that they're working on now, but it's clear that they're really just heads down on this, and they're not really interested in doing too much communication about it other than that. And they even said to keep your eye on the status page for more information, and Zyloh, unfortunately, I think, did another one of those foot in mouth things potentially, where he said that the patch would be coming out in a number of days. Now, what have your experiences been so far with 3.18? I've not been able to log in on my main account, on my Zero to Hero account, or on my orgs account this entire update. The only account I'm able to get into was some account I was planning on giving the ship away on from like 7 years ago that I forgot I had. I've hopped on servers that were good, and then they would degrade. But the thing is 3.18 still is a monumental patch. It's hard to recognize just how big this patch is for a lot of people, because you have to look past the dumpster fire that is going on right now. But fortunately, I've been able to play the PTU leading up to this, and you were really able to see that potential. So remain patient, guys. It's gonna get better. And it's worth it. I think it's worth it in the long run, and even in the short term for some of the updates that we have for 3.18. That's really all I have. Keep an update on the status page. Hopefully things get better. Let's move on to video updates. And we have an Inside Star Citizen titled Mission to Module. And before we actually get into the actual video, well, they put a little update around 3.18. And yeah, so they just decided to address it at the beginning of an ISC, which is kind of a big deal.
Hey, before we get on to the normal business of Inside Star Citizen this week, we wanted to take a moment and recognize and acknowledge what's currently happening with the live gameplay experience. Obviously, anyone that's been following the project for any period of time knows that running a live gameplay environment throughout the process of development is an unusual, sometimes trying, but often rewarding experience. But it's not just the tremendous work of our developers that make this possible. It's also the continuing commitment of you, our players, that allow us to test things at scale. Because it's often easy to forget that with the hype and excitement of a new release, that every level of Star Citizen is a development and testing platform, even the live alpha. Now, even knowing that the launch of Alpha 3.18 was going to be rougher than normal, I think it's fair and safe to say that we were all hoping for a somewhat smoother experience than the one that you have been finding the last week. Now, while I'm going to continue pointing you to the amazing efforts of our platform team, the player experience team, and especially the community team in updating you on the continuing progress through the website and socials, because quite frankly, they're far more plugged into those things than I am and will have much better information than I ever will. We did feel it was important to acknowledge the current state of things at the top of this show, whose story was set weeks and months before. I said it on SCL, and I'll say it again here. We don't just share in the victories with each and every one of you. We're often right there with you with the same thoughts and the same feelings about our disappointments. We're sorry for the rough launch, but I hope you can see the determination and the dedication of those people working to improve things in the improvements that are being made each and every day this week, and will continue until we get things where we want them to be.
I'm hearing a lot of, yes, well, but just in case you didn't know, the live servers are in alpha, and you're so important, the players are so important, and things like that we've been hearing for many, many years. Something that we don't hear very often is I'm sorry. And that is what we get here. And I think that that is really worth noting, is the genuineness of the communication here and the fact that they're saying they're sorry. They often don't admit fault for anything. Sometimes they even blame us for their problems. But the one thing is, it's incredibly hard to notice that when you're not getting into game, that people are incredibly hard at work trying to get you there and trying to make this experience better. Now, they also did another little 3.18 update at the end of the show, and I think that's the most key point around 3.18.
And just to touch on Alpha 3.18 once more, the team continues to tackle the troubles that have plagued launch since Friday, and you'll find continuing updates as needed at the robertsspaceindustries.com website. Now, stability has been steadily returning all week, with more and more people being able to connect in and stay in for longer durations after that. And there's been a number of absolutely critical fixes that only became known and necessary thanks to you all showing up and stressing the ever-loving hell out of the new Entity Streaming Foundation for the Persistent Universe in ways that, frankly, we never could on the PTU.
And that's the key thing here, is the we never could have on the PTU comment. They completely ignore the fact that Star Citizen is a live service and people want to play Star Citizen like it's a game. I'm one of those people. But Star Citizen, unfortunately, isn't a game yet. And I think that they did what's best to take the project to the point where it can be a game in the long term. They have to break it to pieces to build it back up better and stronger. It sucks, but I still think this was the right thing to do, even though it kind of feels like they hyped this up knowing that it was going to be problematic, because that's the only way to get the data that they needed. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the mission modular stuff, or the modular missions, and they discussed why we really need them.
The early days, everyone was just coming up with missions, right?
What we used to have to do is have a bespoke mission for every mission we had.
Someone might have built it to act this way, and then another person might have built it to act this way, but in a completely different way.
So one person would start like a delivery mission, would have to write it from beginning to end, and then some other person would write a bounty mission from beginning to end, and then another delivery mission, again, from beginning to end. And the problem with that situation was that everyone wrote their scripts differently.
Each mission, while might have similarities, every bit of logic was different in some way.
We are a game that constantly evolves, that constantly gets updated, so things break sometimes.
We used to get bugs back, which was like, oh, you know, that when we enter the action area for this mission, this happens, but it wouldn't happen on the other one, even though they're functionally doing the same thing.
Everything was built in a different way, and so everything also needed to be fixed individually.
So they clearly needed to unify everything, and it appears that they have, and that's kind of where we are today. And then they explain all the type of missions that they have now, like deliveries, elimination, and bounties, but then they also touched on the new stuff that they're working on.
So what we're working on now is resource collection missions. That includes salvage and mining missions.
We're even going to be adding classic things like someone wants 40 pieces of wheat and you have to go and find that and bring that back to them. All of these things we're looking into, investigating, hopefully you'll see soon. No, Reddit, that's just an example. We're not actually going to collect wheat.
Okay, so the example that they gave was really exciting because I thought about farming for a second, right? And the problem here is that the joke takes away from the really important thing that they point out. that they're making collection missions, like collect 40 of X, it doesn't matter what it is, and those are classic MMO missions, and creating them adds variety and complexity to the game that we just haven't had before. For me, it's a key to making the game a game. But the only thing that will make these missions feel the right way is an economy getting turned on and purpose behind collecting these things. Call it wheat, call it whatever you want, but the item that you're collecting, why are you collecting it? Who are you collecting it for? Why do they want it? Does it have any value to you? If they want 40, are you able to collect 45 or 60 and keep some for yourself? That kind of stuff is, I think, what is really needed to take everything forward. Now, they did touch in much more detail on salvage mission modules, so let's hear what they have to say about that.
So I guess you really want to hear about some of the new stuff. So let's talk about salvage modules. The salvage module is currently a singular module, and what we have done is allowed for a bunch of functionality.
The most simple version is you get a contract in your mobi-glass given by a company that has salvage rights. You accept mission in a mobi-glass, and then it's going to give you a piece of salvage, and it says, well, we have a piece of salvage for you, and it's located at this Lagrange point.
The player is shown a location where a shipwreck can be found. So they make their way there, and it could be that another NPC is there salvaging already. Or you could have an illegal variant of the mission where you have to go there and salvage everything quickly before another player that has the contract legally shows up.
But there's going to be a timer on screen of whenever the legal owner of that salvage is going to appear, which can end up in enemies arriving because he calls them in.
Now, most of the stuff we've heard before on ISEs and SCLs and recent things in really recent history, but then they went into detail on some of the sub-modules that they're going to be working on specifically for these missions right now.
We've made several sub-modules that allow to work with it. So the first one is spawn ship waves. So it's going to be a wave-based module that allows the designer to define what the waves are like exactly, and then they show up. And another module that we've been making that we're actually quite proud of is a chicken ship module. And that's a ship that shows up and then is either going to attack you or try to run away. And if you scare it off by either damaging it or taking too long, it's going to try and jump away. And if it does so, then it allows the designer to define what's going to happen then. So the most basic version would be he's going to call in his friends. They come in, and then all of a sudden it's not you and a vulture against another vulture. It's going to be you against a retaliator bomber and 4 arrows, and you're in trouble. Now, the other option is like, okay, if you destroy it, then what happens? So we have the option of like a Carrick arrives because the company is like, well, we haven't heard from Bob in an hour. We're going to send like someone else to do the salvage, but maybe something happened to him. We're going to send something bigger. Or you basically warded off the defenders and you're now safe to salvage at your own leisure.
This kind of modular approach will allow other designers to come up with whatever they want when it comes to building missions. There could be a number of possibilities. It is only limited by their imagination.
Now, this is really what the show was about, on how modularity could create more variation for missions and unpredictability in missions that you would be doing quite often. The chicken ship one is really, really interesting, but I also kind of see them being problematic because it does look like there's so many opportunities for the server to break missions like that. And then lastly, they share a module that we haven't heard of yet.
All of these sort of modifiers and options are there to sort of allow us to create different types of gameplay or different experiences with very little changing of the logic. It's a lot of just changing different properties on what's called a mission record.
Another mission module that we're working on that hasn't been revealed yet is package extraction. So it's a mission where the Ninetales have taken over another Crusader platform, and they have gotten their hands on some highly valuable Crusader prototype ship components. So Crusader really wants them back before they fall into the wrong hands. And as a result, they put out a contract, and many players all around Crusader are tasked with going to that platform and handing it to the Ninetales, essentially getting back the prototype ship components before they can be flown off-world.
One thing we've been playing with is that we hooked it up to the bounty modules that already exist. So we would fire a bounty module where the player goes to a location, they kill a ship, and then we kick off a salvage module, all in one mission. So the player goes there, kills the ship, and then instantly their objectives are like, and now harvest it. And then that's the completion of the mission. So at the moment, mining missions are on pause while we wait for resources from other teams, but in the meantime, we will continue to develop salvage missions, mining missions, and the overall scope of resource collection missions. So, you could hopefully see your wildest imagination of resource collecting missions come true. A reasonable expectation of resource collection missions in the future.
The Orson mission is interesting, but I left the end there because they shared that mining missions are getting delayed. And that's a disappointment, but it does also sound like they just need work from another team, and maybe they're not really willing to speak on the scope of that work or how long it's going to take. Then we had a Star Citizen Live titled Engineer Scrutineer, and this show was great. It was an opportunity to clear up any confusion around the engineering update from last week's ISC, and there was a lot of it. And they started with this.
Is Engineer this absolutely enormous behemoth thing that's going to ruin everybody's experience, and everybody's going to be forced into micromanaging the tiniest and most insignificant details of their ship life?
If you're into that, yes. So, so we want to allow you to basically have full control over all the ship items, over your ship. So it should feel like your ship if you're into that. But on the other hand, we also want to allow players that are just like jumping in for, let's say, 1 hour of game time. We don't want to force them into you have to do a 2-hour prep and then do another of 1 hour of post-prep for your ship. We really want also to have those players being able to fly around and experience all the missions in the persistent universe and all what we ever will throw at you.
Simple. The video team basically edited the video and made it seem like it was so active and there was so much going on that maybe there was no option to opt in or opt out of this style of gameplay. And it's clear that you're going to be able to enjoy your ships in any way that you want. If you want to min-max, you can. If you really want to go into depth, you can. But if you don't have to. But there will be advantages to doing it, and there will be disadvantages to not doing it. The next question was about repairing your ship, and people were wondering how optional that would be as well. And I love Thorsten's answer around this.
Yeah, so one thing that is even now written behind me on my whiteboard which is the main goal that we envision for the engineering gameplay, is that player decisions matter, and one of the decisions can be it's not my gameplay, so I'm not into engineering, and it's a valid decision. It's your choice, it's your game, it's your ship, whatever you want to do, that you can do it. So but that has the consequence of you probably will run with the stock settings for the items that you bought. And you regularly have to go to repair it, so you have to pay the money to actually be able to repair it, and sometimes you might even need to exchange the items for money, so you have to buy a new item to have it then exchanged on your ship and stuff like that. But if you then have the other player type who then is interested in no, I can maintain my items myself and I can adjust them to my demands, so you can get a more, a bigger or longer lifetime of the items out of your ship, or you get a more effective ship, or out of your ship,
Player choice is what it's all about for me. But then the upkeep thing, I think, is what's also really interesting, because it kind of opens the door for crafting a lot more than you think. Gathering in-game items in order to repair a component on your ship, or, it kind of creates value to the player outside of just selling an item or selling a resource, because things might actually become useful when they start implementing this feature in. The next question is one that I think people probably understood the least about the recent Inside Star Citizen.
Now, for someone who chooses to be an engineer, can they be all 3 roles?
Yes.
Is there something that prevents them from being one?
Even the person that doesn't want to be an engineer can be all of those 3 types that we talked about. It isn't it's no skill, it's no talent, it's no device, it's not something that you pick. It's based on your skill. So based on your skill, your knowledge, you just take up we thought the head might be a clear indicator. There's a dedicated console that is constantly running, which full purpose is to give you an overview of the state of the ship. And this can be used by whoever whatever person you are, attached, and once you interact with it, you can be technically called an engineer because you're actually interacting with the system. And for the mechanic, it's like, if there's something, or if you as a person, you don't have to be a mechanic, you just run around and you see something is broken, you pull out your multi-tool and fix it, then you suddenly are the mechanic. You are wearing your mechanic hat and actually fixing the thing.
This is the part that differs from some discussion that they've had, and it's possible that that discussion still is going to happen, which is players having access to certain panels or doors or rooms inside of ships based on a role that they've been given by the captain, and engineering might be one of those roles, but anyone can be an engineer. It's not like a skill that you have to, put points into or anything like that, and some people might have been confused. I think the next question is also one of the most unclear aspects of the engineering update, and I don't think it was that cleared up here either.
For a malfunction, for like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm just trying to live my life out in the verse, and my crap breaks. What do we think? Is this a thing that happens every 30 minutes?
No.
Is this a thing? Yeah, like set some expectations for me here.
So it is dependent on what, like if you fly your stock ship, like the base example, if you fly your stock ship, like we are still debating if we want to make it based on the distances you travel or based on the time you actually spend in the ship. Right now my favor is to go in the distance side so that we make it distance based, but because like you might, like we don't want to punish players that are just jumping around in one system and just doing like the comparison again with cars, right? If you have a car that you just use to travel short distances in a city, it lives longer than a car that you use to travel. Well, it's not entirely true, but you get the idea. So just to throw something out, it's like, you might have it once a month, once a week, maybe.
I think Torsten, is going to get burned a little bit on giving time on how long it will take for some things to fail, but I do like the idea of the mileage, because I think it's like an oil change. You know when to do it, when's too early, when's too late, but I also, I follow like farming channels on YouTube and stuff, and tractors, instead of mileage, they go by hours in use for maintenance and when to maybe grease certain parts of the vehicle and things. So it can go either way, and either way would make sense. I just think more players would understand the mileage aspect and basic car maintenance than really big heavy equipment maintenance. And then the second half of the video is the standard interview, but nothing really to do with the game section. And this was with Star Citizen streamer and actress in Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, Anna Demetrio. And it was really good. It was just your classic hangout session. So if you guys are into that, feel free to check it out. Link will be down in the description below. And then we have a few other updates to check out with you guys. And as always, we'll start out with a sneak peek, and this was a somewhat shameless plug for Invictus with one of their biggest ship sale drives coming up, and it was also a chance for them to show off some of the new signage for new players to get around the location. This is Area 18. Icons for types of shops were on there, so not really bad. I think that was a pretty good one. And then Stella Fortuna is coming, which, well, I think it's kind of here for St. Patrick's Day, and the timing of this I think isn't great, but the sales must go on. They're going to sell ships, and regardless of the status of the game, which just isn't a good look for them, but it's what they do. They haven't had a good look for 10 years, and they're still going strong. So for St. Patrick's Day, they're doing limited stock sales on green ship packages. The 890 jump goes on sale, and it was named a rare ship, even though it goes on sale every year. And there are also some screenshot contests, the usual. And then lastly, a lore post, which was a simple Whitley's guide on the 300 series. Now, that will do it for today's episode. Thank you for watching Week in Review. I always appreciate you guys coming here. The support has been insane the last couple weeks. In case you didn't know, at the end of April, not March, at the end of April, I will be full time. So it's because of you guys that I'm able to do that, and I just want to say thank you very much. It's been really, really great. Again, I planned a vacation a year ago, hoping that everything would go as planned for the quarterly releases, and I would basically be kind of going offline for a week at a slow period of Star Citizen, and I am unfortunately getting hit with the busiest time of Star Citizen. So I want to thank you guys for your support. Make sure you leave a like on this video and share it around and everything. And I will be in contact on Discord and as many places as I can be while I'm away, but it will be difficult as sometimes I will not have any internet. But I want to thank you guys so much. And as always, like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Let me know if I missed anything, as I'm getting this rushed out a little bit to you guys on Saturday night, as I do leave on Sunday morning, even though this will be going up on Monday. So once again, thank you very much. I will catch you guys next week when I'm back, and hopefully there's a 318-1 and you guys are enjoying the heck out of Star Citizen while I'm gone, and I'll get back in there and provide some hopefully really fun content with you when I get back.